How did I get to where I'm at? Well, I followed the instinct. I followed the what would be a good idea with what the predecessors are kind of hinting towards. And what would be a good idea is, going back to the basics. Back to the basics. Don't need to tell anybody, but this is just for my own thing. So I don't really, look at I don't look into I just don't really care if I'm judged, but I know there should be like still a certain awareness still needs to be developed within, how there is there's quote unquote lower octave beings, end quote, who don't have an awareness of basic general nature law, where there's a different type of give and take system aside from the lower octave give and take system, right? Because there's a give and take system of just like certain ways, things could be exchanged in certain ways, but that doesn't fly on different levels though, right? Because for you to get to that different level, you kind of like the lower octave resonance won't go into that, so that's why there's also a working that needs to be done too. So it's like I got to where I'm at because I guess it was by nature, right? It's like, needing to like see what fit for who I was, right? Me getting over myself in different ways. And as we're getting over ourselves, that's going through different ways. We have to get over all of our emotions. Get over my shame. Get over my ego. Get over my, disdain. Get over my, even grief. Grief comes into play for sure. So it's like, so when someone says get over yourself, they don't even know what that necessarily means, because on a more like spiritual level, respectively, as we're trying to get over ourselves, we don't necessarily know that's our individual life path and process. So it's like even if you were to say that to someone, you're doing that too, type of stuff. And that's like that process is like always happening. So it's like, so that's why the resonance could be quote unquote tricky, end quote, because it's like we, like, whether we know it or not, we're always getting over ourselves, but we just don't know that we're getting over ourselves. And as we're getting over ourselves, sometimes if we're not like fluid and fluctuous with that process, that could be a hindering to us towards like where we could like ultimately, set some type of like, balanced type of trend for the setting that we're in. Because obviously when you go to work, you have to be appropriate within your work, right? So some level of you got over yourself was there because you made it to work, so it's a micro example, but it's still an example. But that doesn't mean the bigger picture, or the like, or a progressing part of yourself is still not doing that. It's still doing that. It's still like, because you're still trying to go beyond work, right? You're trying to go like to a different level, right? And as you're trying to go to a different level, there's different mechanics, and to like ultimately realize that different mechanics, that's why we have to like go through what we have to go through. Disclaimers in effect, because I'm not telling anybody like they have to go through anything, but like it's like there's a theme of just like somewhere in us we take delight in fighting for our liberty. And from the fighting from our liberty, then war is kind of inevitable, because there's different quote unquote trick reasons, end quote, on why we feel why we should have this liberty based area for us, you know. That's the whole like that's like the Olympics of nations, right? The war is like an unofficial Olympics of nations. And that has to be kind of done because we're all kind of fighting for our sovereignty, or but we're not doing it in like a balanced way. We're doing it in like a unique way in how we just want to represent our own shit. But what but the people who that are like kind of doing that, they're not necessarily realizing or representing real wholeness, because little do they know the small percentages there is a thing for balance and wholeness. Shout out to the predecessors. And since they don't know that, they're operating on a whole different esoteric operating system, respectively. Equilibrium, open source, you know. I don't know, the EOS just kind of went through. And so within that, it's kind of like it's not necessarily encouraged, but it's permitted and it's applauded that like people want to kind of like fight for division, and they don't know there's an option for wholeness. They don't know there's an option for a particular type of peace and balance, respectively. So since they're not doing that, the people that are going towards balance, it seems like it's like on a different esoteric level. It seems like it's coming, like the resolution is coming from the east, and the resolution is going towards the west somehow, because the west, there's more like, there's a unique type of liberty here, right? There's a unique type of wholeness, possibility for wholeness, right? And balance, right? So within that, it's as if like if you're resonating and you're somewhere on the east, because that's your deep karmic work, right? You're there for a reason. There's some type of branch of division that you're in, not good, not bad. And then you have the possibility to introduce wholeness over there. Perhaps it's a chance, right? We've talked about this. So as that's going on, there's just a small possibility here on the west, but it's more kind of like alive for us, but still it could be dim for us, you know, just energetically speaking. It's, or like, you know, on a metaphysical literal level, like the possibility of peace, balance, and wholeness, regardless of the physical status, respectively, that possibility could be dim, right? The possibility of like, you're here on the west where there's a opportunity, a secret duality of disorder and order, and we're in our own unique level of that disorder and order, and sometimes we don't want to recognize the order for whatever reason, but still there is a unique order here on the west, right? And as that unique order is more or less coming more evident, it's up to us, the younger fucking generations, to kind of go towards that. Because if they don't, then the possibility for real balance and peace and wholeness will be reduced, and that will reduce, you know, ultimately to fucking really sustain your comfort and your dreams. Real talk. And none of the fucking real none of the other, like, you know, commercialized, you know, spiritual you know, businesses, they're not going to necessarily like highlight this shit, because there's a lack of critical thinking there, right? They're leaning towards this disorder competition kind of shit. But how we like sustain that is by us actually, like, us influencing the younger generations, not necessarily just for this like capital based competition, but actually to actually sustain on a bigger picture, that us realizing that us relating with the order and the balance and the peace, that sustains ourselves and the collective, and it reduces the disorder, the unnecessary disorder. That's the difference between me and all of these fucking like commercialized like spiritual teachers, most respectfully. And that's just the reality of it. And if anybody catches offense, then that's your esoteric growth that you have to peep endlessly, right? And if you can't find the balance transformation, that's not my fucking figgity fault. But anyways, so we're here, we have a possibility. There's a percentage of it actually like being a thing, you know? So it's up to like the younger generation to kind of like recognize that there is some type of unique order that we could relate to. And if we relate to that unique order, as we're growing up into this world, somewhat semi-confused, like, oh shit, my life is my life. I'm a young adolescent, but there's some crazy fucking shit going on. It's because the collective consciousness isn't recognizing the unique order of balance, the unique order of wholeness, and the unique order of quote unquote tranquility, peace, end quote. And I say tranquility, peace with the quote unquotes because, you know, the etymology will be doing different things, right? Shout out to the predecessors. So it's like, it's up to us to lean towards that and to like build with that, you know, share that energy, right? So we could, for what though? So we could actually have a balanced approach for the real dream building shit and peace building shit. That's the difference between these coaches that are saying manifest anything that you want, yet they can't fucking solve, you know, like, world hunger and shit like that. And there's other examples. It's not that lack of critical thinking in all energetic respects. So I'm gonna have to restart. I'm gonna have to like re-listen to this video like